Hello, everyone, and welcome back for a new season of talking about Survivor. I'm Christiana Ellis.
And I'm Mike Martin.
So we've been doing this for a while, not since the very beginning of Survivor, but seems like it sometimes. We just talk about Survivor, as you might gather. So today, though, we're doing a pre-show for the new season, which is going to launch on September 23rd. Survivor Second Chances, where it was the Survivor First that the public were allowed to vote from a short list of previous Survivor castaways. And who do we want to see get a second chance? And there were some previous winners originally in that list, I believe, but I don't think any of the previous winners got selected for this. Am I mistaken? Am I crazy? I didn't look that up to confirm that.
I don't remember seeing that, but I cannot confirm.
Okay, so now that I'm thinking about it, the only winners that were previously on the list were when we didn't know yet who was winning the last one. So there was a couple of people on the list that were still in the running to possibly win the most recent season. And so we weren't sure, like, were they going to be disqualified if they win?
Got it.
But so as we typically do during our pre-show, we are making snap judgments on people. Now, in this case, because everyone is returning, we'll remember some people better than others. So what we've decided to do as a format is from the cbs.com/survivor website. They have a little feature where it clicks through, and for each castaway, they have a little brief summary of who is this person? What season were they on before? What did they do? So we're going to read that brief description for each person and then start a 2-minute timer. And when that timer is done, I am on the wrong screen on my phone. When the timer is done, it will make this sound. And then we'll move on to the next person. Sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
Well, you and I already discussed it, and the audience can't actually respond. So we're going to do it anyway, whether it sounds like a plan to them or not.
All right.
So we're going to go in chronological order because that is the order that this website feature has them in. Chronological order as in first to appear in the show versus, to last. So to start, we have Kelly Wigglesworth all the way back from season 1, which is kind of cool in and of itself. So this Tagi Alliance member from Survivor Borneo was known for her rather deceitful behavior and was even considered by some to be the main antagonist following the merge. By winning immunity challenges, she was able to make it to the final tribal council, but couldn't pull off a season 1 victory. Starting the timer. So I never watched season 1. It's one of those seasons that I hadn't gotten onto the show yet. And I always thought maybe I should go back and watch it, but I never got around to it.
Yeah.
I do know, though, that Susan Hawk's infamous final tribal council speech was really kind of precedent setting for the show in the sense of especially the use of animal metaphors, because in her metaphor in that season, it was the snake and the rat. And let it be as nature intended, let the snake eat the rat, is what she said. Well, in that case, Richard Hatch was the snake and Kelly Wigglesworth was the rat. So that's probably indicated by this deceitful behavior tag in the paragraph. But I know that even though I don't really know much about her from watching her, it is very cool to have someone all the way from season 1.
Yes.
Here in season 31.
I know. I think that's really cool. Unfortunately, I don't know that she's got a great shot at this, especially if she has a reputation as a rat. She's going to be 15 years older, so she's not going to have as much. It's not going to be as easy to just cruise through immunity challenges.
Well, see, yeah, that's true. She's older. One of the things that I was thinking, though, is, first of all, it's been long enough that there might be, she can play the card of that was me then, this is me now.
Right.
And might have some, might even be true.
Yeah, I mean, it is probably true. I mean, that was also her on the show, not necessarily her in real life. And she's not doing the same way. So.
There's the timer.
Right.
Yeah, and it was also the very first season of the show when nobody knew how to play yet.
Yep.
So let's move on to the next contestant, castaway, whatever. Jeff Varner from season 2, Australian Outback. On Survivor of the Australian Outback, Jeff was considered a big threat at the merge, which is why he was targeted and ended up in 10th place. This castaway wasn't afraid to play dirty, and his most memorable moment was stepping down from immunity challenge for peanut butter. That's right, peanut butter, people. Jeff jumped off a pole for that gooey goodness, which is something he still considers his biggest game mistake. Starting the timer. That was, if I am not mistaken, because I have not watched season 1, the very first time that there was. So I had not watched season 1, so I don't know that this occasion was the first time that they offered a bribe to stop an immunity challenge early, but it might have been. This was certainly the first season that I watched, and I've not seen all of the ones since then. I did miss a couple, but I did watch this season. I don't especially remember him. He seems like an eager fella in what I've seen since then.
Yeah. And, if he was good at the game back then and has still been following it, he'll probably be good at it again. And he'll have learned from his mistakes. I think he could be formidable if he's able to build relationships, which he was back then, and all that stuff. So,
well, and still being in shape is going to be an issue for him too, because it was, almost as long ago as for Kelly.
Yeah, but he wasn't. Well, I mean, it doesn't. I guess I don't know. I mean, Kelly was specifically called out for having won a lot of immunities, which is why I was saying that strategy maybe won't work for her again. She won't
be able to dominate as well. It doesn't actually say here. It says he was considered a big threat, but it's not clear if that was specifically challenge related or otherwise.
Right.
If I recall those early seasons, it still largely was about challenges. People were more concerned about winning challenges, which doesn't, of course, become irrelevant in later seasons, but I think there was less focus on who's going to be the one to win at the end. Although there was also in that season a big controversy in the sense that Colby did not take who everyone thought he should take to the finals and lost as a result. Tina Wesson, who was also a returning castaway, but not this season. All right, so next is Kimmy Cappenberg, also from season 2.
Yep.
Kimmy hails from Survivor, the Australian Outback, one of the most watched seasons in the series history. With no real alliance on her side, Kimmy finished 12th and provided a lot of over-the-top moments. For example, she ate a mangrove worm to win immunity for her tribe, and got into an infamous finger-wagging fight over chickens with fellow castaway Alicia Calloway. She's often remembered as being the show's first vegetarian, too. Starting the timer. I do remember Kimmy, partly just because she is instrumental in one of the clips that is almost always shown whenever they talk about this season, which is the "Don't Kimmy. You wag your finger in my face. I will always wag my finger in your face." That exchange.
Yes.
And it was because she was trying to insist that they not slaughter the chickens that their tribe had been given. It was related to that, I'm pretty sure. And so that was the argument. And so I definitely remember that about her. So she, of course, as with the last two, is going to be 15 years older now. So that's always a thing. But, she's probably not going to have to eat a mangrove worm this time because they kind of stopped doing that, thankfully, because that got old.
Yeah, hopefully she'll be a little more calmed down. I mean, as amusing as that was, like, that can't be good for her game if she actually if she behaves like that,
Well, it wasn't then either.
Nope.
Yeah, as the description said, she didn't really have any alliance. But again, that was so early in the game. It was people were still feeling out what kinds of strategies are likely to work. And, we hadn't had Boston Rob yet to invent his rules.
Yes.
And it's true though that we have seen people who kind of end up as loners to some extent. We've seen them make their way to the end just by not ever being the top of anybody's list. Although frequently those are not the people that are most exciting to see win because they would only make it there by being under the radar.
I don't really have much else to say about Kimmy. All I know about was her is the chickens.
Yeah. Hopefully nobody wags their finger in her face. We know she doesn't like that.
No.
All right. Next. Andrew Savage from season 7. You may remember this big-hearted fella from Survivor Pearl Islands, where he placed 10th. He didn't win the season, but did experience a moment of victory when he led the Morgan tribe to a much-needed immunity win by getting into beast mode and holding up 180 pounds worth of weight. He was a victim of the controversial Outcast twist, a change of events that nobody saw coming that allowed 2 ousted castaways to return to the game and sent the Morgan tribe to tribal council. Starting a timer. Yeah, this was the last season that I didn't watch in terms of a gap season for me. So I still didn't see this season, but I've seen all of them since then. So I still don't have personal.
Right. This was Rupert's season, right? Original?
Yes. And so the whole controversy there, which they never quite repeated the way they did it here, the whole Outcast thing. I think there was just a perception in that season that it didn't feel fair the way that it happened there. And so it sounds like he probably has an opinion about that.
Yep. But I'd like to see him get into beast mode again.
Yeah.
That's always fun. I don't really know anything about him other than that's what it said. So
his last name is Savage.
Yes.
I
feel like I don't have anything more to say about him.
Yeah. There's not really any direct correlation, I think, probably between having the last name Savage and going into beast mode. Or is there?
All right. Sorry, I skipped over because I was done with him. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, we still have 40 seconds on the timer. We don't want to skimp.
We can skimp.
You want to skimp?
Yeah. I mean, no anything else to say about him. Good luck, Andrew Savage.
Well, what's your opinion on 180 pounds worth of weight?
How was he doing? What were you doing with it?
It's probably having to carry it around, like running around in a circle with it or something. Like one of those challenges where they're in like knee-length water and they're having to chase each other around the circle. It's probably something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a significant amount of weight.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta have good grip strength to hold up that much if you're like carrying it around. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Down or up. Yeah. I don't know.
See, we did it. All right.
Unnecessarily.
All right. Next,
Terry
Dietz from season 12.
I feel like this was the first season I watched.
I think this might have been the first season. So we watched Vanuatu together, but didn't do the podcast for it yet. This may be the first season that we did the podcast for.
That's right. So Vanuatu was before this?
Yes, I believe it was 11.
Okay.
I could look it up, but I'm not gonna. Terry stood out in a few ways. First, he was a big threat to the other castaways on Survivor Panama. There was his rivalry with Aris, plus his final immunity challenge loss to Danielle Di Lorenzo, which happened after she reneged on her deal. Finally, let's not forget about him winning 5 individual immunity challenges in a row. Unfortunately, all those things couldn't bring Terry a final victory, and he ended up in 3rd place at the end of the season.
Oh, man. Vanuatu was 9th season.
Oh, okay. So maybe we had one more in between.
Yeah.
So
we definitely were podcasting by this time.
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Fun fact, Terry was the 2nd castaway to find a hidden idol, but only the 1st to do so on Exile Island. So our first Survivor podcast was, I believe, fall of 2005 or maybe spring of 2006, one or the other.
I feel like it was spring. I feel like we watched one and we were talking about it and we said, hey, we could podcast this, and then like the next one rolled around.
Yeah, I think that might be right. Funny how it's not always right at the forefront of the memory when you're talking about stuff that happened 10 years ago. I was going to say 15. All right.
Yes.
Oh, starting the timer.
That would be this one.
Okay. Wait. Okay. So this is the first one you think this might be the first one we podcasted?
Yeah, because Vanuatu was follow 4, Palau spring 05, Guatemala follow 5.
Yeah.
And then Panama Exile Island spring 06. So we probably watched Guatemala, and then we were talking about it and said, hey, we should record this. Or you said that, like, hey, there's this podcasting thing we could do.
I feel like we did Guatemala, but I'll have to see. You know what? I bet I can find out, but I'm not going to right now.
Okay.
So
anyway,
Terry, though,
Terry.
Yeah. Vaguely remember him. Certainly, I think he was one of the people who came up just by virtue of the 5 individual immunity challenge wins in a row, just because that's a record to beat. So his rivalry with Aris, and it's funny because when we talk about Aris and Vitas, I guess I had forgotten that Aris had previously won before he was on Blood versus Water with his brother.
Yeah, he won this one.
Yeah. So I guess I had forgotten that in my own personal history of him. I'd forgotten that he was not new to the game in that season. But yes, so in any case, he doesn't have to go up against Aris this time, although Vitas is in play.
Yes. That's what I just remember liking Terry. I remember he was a beast in challenges. I think he'll do well, actually. I think
he seems like he's having fun. He has a kind of a positive attitude about things, it seems like.
Right. And even though it's, 9 years later, like he was older then than a lot of them, but he was still strong. Like he's clearly kept himself like in shape. So be good.
Yep. All right. Next, PG Law from season 15. PG, one of the, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, one of the series' feistiest underdogs, finished 5th on Survivor China. She is mostly remembered for having a quiet social game, strong opinions, and being the last surviving member of the Izanhu tribe after winning a do-or-die immunity challenge at the final 6. Timer.
Yeah. All I remember about her is her being feisty. That is an accurate description in my memory.
I confess I really don't remember much about her. I remember mostly Todd and Amanda from that season, who I believe were 1 and 2 in the end.
Yeah. She just would occasionally kind of flip out on people. Like she had quite a mouth on her. Like feisty is accurate. Do you remember that? I don't remember any specific things she said, but I do remember her kind of, like I said.
I feel like that's not the greatest picture they could have taken right here, just because the little mark on her lip from this angle makes it look like something's coming out of her nose.
I see that. I thought it was a good picture because it looked like she was in one of those moods,
Yeah.
What you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, she does. I think it looks good otherwise, it's just kind of an unfortunate angle.
I mean, I think it captures like her about to like kind of like the little disgust that she used to have with people.
Yeah.
But
well, and it definitely looks far into the game too, because she's pretty skinny in this picture. Yeah. I mean, she's not just like a skinny person, but yeah, looks like someone who's been playing a game of Survivor for 25 days.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Survivor China, I feel like, is not well regarded. Like people, like when Dalton Ross does his list every year, I feel like he has this one relatively low. I feel like I remember thinking that the challenge design was pretty impressive, and I having Todd to root for was fun. So I feel like I remember it fondly, even if I don't remember a lot of detail.
I feel like the way I remember it is it was like shitty weather a lot, like, and not like those weird like rainstorms that kept him in. I just remember it being kind of like gray and muddy and stuff. It's kind of, I just feel like that's what just felt kind of that's my recollection. I may be totally off base.
Next up, Stephen Fishbach, season 18.
Token Jeans.
Placing second on Survivor Token Jeans. Stephen was known for playing an impressive strategic game alongside winner JT Thomas and earned the nickname of the Wizard from Coach Wade. Unfortunately, he was ignored by the jury when he didn't receive a single vote to win in the final tribal council. Stephen counts being in JT's shadow as the biggest mistake in his own game. Starting the timer. Definitely remember him, just because that was one of the biggest conversations in that whole season, was just how JT and Stephen were such a great team all the way through, but with a definite sense that JT was the leader, and and Stephen was like his lieutenant. And so if it's the two of them at the end, they're going to give it to JT. And so Stephen didn't really ever do anything early enough or powerful enough to separate himself from JT and convince people that they should vote for him. But at the same time, it was almost I remember it almost feeling a little disappointing that somehow they would work together the whole season, and then there's this perception that JT gets everything and Stephen gets nothing. Although that's not quite true, because I think the runners-up do actually get not $1 million, but a substantial cash prize.
Yeah, and I had to look up JT. As soon as I looked him up, I remembered exactly. It all came rushing back. But yeah, JT had a hell of a lot more charisma than Stephen did. Well, not that Stephen was an uncharismatic guy. It's just JT like oozed that stuff. Oh yeah, the two of them together. I think it's actually part of what made them a great team together, is that JT kind of had the charisma, and Stephen was the wizard, right? Yeah. It's the Kirk and Spock thing in a way. Yeah, I mean it's really a good team thing when there's one guy who can who's out there in front, shaking the hands, kissing the babies, meeting everybody and glad handing everyone, and then the other guy in the back saying, okay, you need to be a little bit extra nice to this guy. Well, okay, we're not going to do, don't forget about this, and and just kind of sits in the back. Like I do remember it worked really well. So hopefully Stephen can use the intelligence, but yet put himself in the forefront. Yeah, I feel like going in, he's one of the people that I'm prepared to root for. Yes, me too. Next up, Monica Padilla from season 19. Galoo tribe member Monica placed 7th on Survivor Samoa and is often remembered for stepping up to Russell Hantz and telling him that she would make or break him on the jury. Ouch. Ouch is in the text, just so no one thinks I added that. All right, starting the timer. I remember liking Monica. I remember feeling like I wanted her to do better, and it was just kind of, it was just the way the game broke. That because of Russell, basically. I mean, he changed the way the trajectory of the season. Yeah. Was this Russell's first season? I think maybe it was. It was the one where we all kind of felt like it was bitter jury syndrome that denied him the win at the end. I think so. pull that up quickly.
Because I know that our discussions of Russell were that the first season we felt like he should have won and it was bitter jury syndrome, but the second season was kind of like
Natalie beat him. Natalie White. Like, who the hell is that? She doesn't even have her own.
She is not Russell, is who she is.
Yeah, she doesn't even have her own Wikipedia page. She's a Survivor winner.
Yeah,
and she has no link in Wikipedia. That's amazing. Yeah. Anyway, but yes, that was that season.
Yeah. So that's so it sounds like she is one of the people who stood up to him and got booted as a result because he was just such a steamroller in that season.
Yes.
Yeah. So I remember liking her though. So let's hope she can do well again.
Yep.
Yeah. Russell was kind of a special player, so I don't think we have anyone in this current cast that's quite like that.
No, he was unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't remember a lot else about her other than just a vague positive sense. Yep. Got 6 more seconds. All right. There we go. Next. Ave Maria Gomez, season 25. Ave Maria started the game in a strong alliance with fellow castaway R.C. Saint-Amour, someone she shared her hidden immunity idol clue with. But after being pitted against each other by Pete Yurkowski, Ave Maria's game fell to pieces. By the end of Survivor Philippines, Ave Maria finished in 5th place and was largely considered to be her season's biggest villain.
That's what I was trying to remember. Start your timer. Go ahead.
I did, yeah.
Was how she ended up a villain. Like, I don't remember what happened. Because
she was awful. That's why. Right. She was just a bitch the whole time. I hated her. In fact, actually, looking at the short list before the vote, she was like, if I could pick one person to not be on the new season, I would have picked her. We'll see how she does, but I remember really disliking her personally. Not quite in the sense of like, I think she's a bad person as much as she's really irritating and just kind of mean. And I just don't like her. I mean, I think she played well enough given that. But, I mean, she made it to 5th, and I don't think it was really just I don't think there was a luck factor. Thing. Yeah, I think it was. And I think that part of it was, they mentioned that being pitted against each other thing. I think it's just that, like, in a way to split up another alliance, she ended up being the one that gets carried along instead of the other side that's cleaved off, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. So I don't want to judge her necessarily as being a bad player. That's not what I remember nearly so much as just that I found her to be unpleasant.
Yes.
And not in a way that was fun to watch on TV for me. So I was not thrilled that she got selected again.
I do remember this film. It's coming back. Not a fan.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure all sorts of more memories will come back to as we start seeing people actually on screen. It's like it's just the picture and so on is not always going to tell the whole story.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting these last 10 people that were much more recent.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Next up. Vitas Buscaglia. Is that right? You think that's about right?
Yep.
Season 27. Playing alongside his little brother Eris on Survivor Blood vs. Water, Vitas, a yoga instructor, placed 10th in his season. Eris had previously won the coveted title of Sole Survivor on Survivor Panama. Definitely remember Vitas because that season, like him and his brother Eris were one of the great storylines to run through that whole season. Yes. That whole sibling rivalry aspect paired with the troubled kid trying to be a more responsible and healthy grown up, but always kind of feeling like he's in the shadow of his golden boy little brother. Yeah.
Yep, that was a good like the redemptive story because he was like a drug addict and was been clean for a long time and
but if I
remember there was some I think I remember once Aris went out, like there was some weird thing with him where I remember something that felt like kind of misogynistic. I thought he had something where he was like talking about how he was like using the girls, but he said it in like a weird way. I remember there was something that made me uncomfortable about him, not in like a totally negative way, but like.
You might be right, but I don't remember that.
Yeah.
One of the standout moments that I do remember though is one of the times where they were doing that shove each other off the platform with cushions things. He did kind of a sucker punch.
Yeah.
His brother. He's getting some extra time, by the way, because I forgot to start the timer early. So we're probably almost at the 2 minutes, but the timer's not going to go off because I didn't start it on time.
Okay.
I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about Vitas?
No, I mean, I generally liked him. I just remember there was something that gave me pause and kind of tarnished that was separate from his past. Like it was something that there was either an arrogance or something weird that came up. But I feel like it was something about how he was talking about how he was just going to use these girls and like there was something like that. But we'll see.
You might be right. I don't remember.
Yeah.
All right. Next. Ciera Eastin from season 27.
I feel like this is a terrible picture of her.
Yeah, it's not the most attractive angle.
It's just hard to recognize her in it. That's not what
and her face is even a little bit blurry in the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. In any case, Ciera placed 5th on Survivor Blood versus Water and was the first player to ever vote against their own family member. Consequently, her mother, Laura Moret, was voted out. The 26-year-old decided to risk her game in a rock draw tiebreaker, which hadn't happened since Survivor Marquesas, and was ultimately responsible for sending her closest ally, Katie Collins, packing. Timer started. So you're right about the picture. I remember her too pretty well. I remember thinking at the time that I wanted to see her play without kind of being handcuffed to her mom, because it really did feel in that one, like it's one thing to say, you have an automatic person who's got your back. And it's nice in that sense to have the family member, but her game, Ciera's game and her mom's game didn't align very well.
Right.
And I think it actually ended up hindering her. And that's why she kind of was forced into the position of having to vote for her mom.
Right. Which then she became like the person who voted for her mom and like.
Yeah.
Not that they like held that against her, but it's hard to build trust with somebody who's like willing to vote against their mom.
Well, and it could also kind of take the wind out of your own sails a little bit going into the end game, just feeling like, maybe you're willing to do that, but you have to kind of go on with that now, knowing that your mom's not there anymore. She's probably disappointed and it's kind of on you. Even if you feel like you did the right thing, there's got to be some regrets there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, at the same time, though, I remember thinking at the time that I would like to see her play without being tethered to her mom. So now we'll get a chance. Yep. All right. So we got 20 seconds left, but we can skip it, I guess. No need to force it if we don't have anything else to say. So next. Aha. Wu Huang. Season 28. This daydreaming martial artist from Survivor Cagayan is primarily remembered for his vibrant attitude and for taking his ally, Tony Vlachos, to the final 2. Starting the timer. Wu was great. He was just fun TV, good TV to watch. Like, it's definitely one of those cases, as they mentioned in that description, he is certainly one of the prime examples of when you are in the position of deciding who goes with you to the final, what factors do you use to make that decision? You know, do you bring the unlikable person because you think that'll give you a better chance? Or do you bring the likable person who was your best bud throughout in order to seem loyal? You know, and I think generally the consensus is you bring the unlikable person if you want to win.
It does, but I gotta feel like that's why we like him though, is because he was true to himself. You know,
Yeah.
like you couldn't imagine anything else from Wu, even if it was the bad decision.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm trying to read to see, because I was wondering if Tony like gave him some of the money for like basically helping him win, hook him up a little bit. So I'm just kind of scanning the Wikipedia page to see if that's like a thing that was like announced, but it's not. If it happened, it's not public. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't think that there would be any obligation to that. I think other than acknowledgement and gratitude, generally, I wouldn't consider there to be a financial thing there. Just as in by the same token, if Wu hadn't picked Tony shouldn't have had the right to, you know, be mad about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I think, it's the sportsmanship thing on both sides, I think.
Jeff Probst listed Tony as one of his top 10 favorite Survivor winners ever.
Yeah. I remember Tony. I like him.
That's who Wu brought, obviously. You know.
Yeah, well, and so that was the whole thing, that, like, you know, Tony seemed great and much more likely to win than whoever the alternative was that I don't remember. And so he did. Yeah. But anyway, next person, Tasha Fox from season 28. Placing 6th on Survivor Cagayan, this likable strategist impressed fans by winning 3 individual immunity challenges in a row, which solidified her as a true physical threat in the game. You may also remember her strategy of getting the Luzon women together to give Garrett Adelstein the boot after his open forum voting discussion. Starting the timer. I liked Tasha a lot. I remember feeling in that season, like at that point in the season, it was a little bit frustrating because I think a lot of the people we were rooting for had been voted out at that point. And then I was rooting for her too, and then she got voted out. And so I remember feeling frustrated when she got voted out because I liked her and I didn't want her to go.
This is the same season that Wu was in, right?
Yeah. Now, I mean, we ended up with, you know, Wu and Tony, who were kind of likable, but it's also a matter of like, who were we rooting for at the time?
Right. Yeah, we were rooting for.
I don't remember the details. I mostly just think about, I remember Tasha, and I'm remembering the feeling I had when she was voted out, which was, oh, come on, all the good people are being voted out.
This was the Spencer season. So when with Cass, who like Chaos Cass, like all that BS, like that's why I think we were so frustrated, because like Cass was just like, like the Chaos thing was just kind of pissing us off. Like it just felt like she would do whatever she felt like just to do it, you know?
Yeah. Well, and we've got Cass to talk about still coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, like Jeremiah, I think we liked. Jeffra. I'm starting to remember these people. Yeah, I'm kind of scrolling through this. So yeah, and Tosh. Then Spencer, and then then it was that's right. It was. Oh, I think that was That was right. That was so. Spencer was 4th, so Wu brought Tony instead of Spencer.
Okay. All right.
Oh, no. Sorry.
This was maybe one of the seasons where they did the final 2 again?
2. Yeah, it was 2. Yeah, so it was actually Cass. So Wu didn't bring Cass because he, like, reconciled in his mind that, like, she had done a lot of – because she had manipulated a lot of things she might win. They never would have given Cass the money. That's why Wu was such a big deal. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we're going to skip Tosh. But, yeah, all right, on to –
well, she was good, though. I like her again. Yeah. So next, Spencer Bledsoe, season 28. This survivor Cagayan castaway began his journey on the dysfunctional Luzon tribe, but was able to gain a substantial amount of power after the tribe switch. After Cass betrayed him, Spencer and Tony worked together, and eventually the Chicago native advanced to the final four. And starting a timer. So Spencer is like the prime example that I think we've talked about in recent seasons of someone when in the pre-show we thought we were going to really not like him, and then we really kind of did. Although I think in some cases there was a little bit of a contrast making him look good because the rest of the tribe that he was on at the time was so, it even calls them dysfunctional in the description here.
Yeah. Yeah, we went into it thinking we wouldn't like him. I ended up liking him. He is another one of the ones I'm rooting for.
Yeah.
I
agree. Me too.
I just feel like we talked about him so recently and so much that it's like,
yeah,
where do you know? He came on. He had that, in writing, he sounded really arrogant. Mm-hmm. But then when, you heard him talk in person, he didn't say anything different. You could still sort of see it, but there was a little bit more of a charm to it.
Well, I think part of it was that his own frustration at being on a tribe with all these people acting so irrationally, and his frustration and enforced humility there at having to deal with that, I think helped the mindset a little bit. I think if he had been able to be on a winning tribe from the get-go, maybe the arrogance would have still been there.
Maybe that might be true. So yeah, we'll see. Which maybe, we'll see how he reacts in this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but yeah, I agree. He's definitely one of the people that I'm hoping for good things for.
Yep.
All right, and there's the timer. All right. Next. Yep, and there she is. Cass McQuillan, season 28. This survivor Cagayan player who called herself Chaos Cass was known for her epic blindsides and confidently speaking her mind. You may remember that particularly jaw-dropping moment when she gave Trish Haggerty the finger after her torch was snuffed, something that to this day Cass doesn't regret. Although she made it all the way to the final three, Cass was sent packing after shockingly being voted out by Wu.
Yeah.
Start the timer. Yeah, Cass was frustrating because she was one of the players early on in the season that I felt like I wanted to support, but she just the whole Chaos Cass thing felt so ad hoc. You know what I mean? It's like she didn't know what to do, so she just started flailing and then decided retroactively that was her strategy.
Yeah.
And so on the one hand, you could say, well, it got her all the way to the final three. And really, if it was anyone except Wu making the decision, probably would have made it to the end. She wouldn't have won.
Yep.
Because everybody hated her at that point. But at the same time, for her, it really did feel a bit more like luck. I feel like she is a smart person. She's probably a smart player if she was able to actually stick to a strategy, but what she really she was the little finger of that season, to make a Game of Thrones reference, the whole chaos is a ladder thing. She's just making stuff happen just to see if she can climb on top of the bodies.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I wasn't especially a fan, although again, I guess I feel like I got the sense that she was smart and was capable of doing better than she actually did. And I think that was part of my frustration and disappointment before.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how she approaches this season, whether she comes in with I'm going to maintain this Chaos Cass mentality, or that was how I played that season, and I'm going to be a little bit more patient and methodical this time, because it looks like, she feels like she could have that ability.
Yeah.
So we'll just see.
Yep. Well, and, everyone seems to have trouble. Whoops. Their first time. So, now that she has that background, we'll see. But so let's go next to Jeremy Collins from season 29. As a major threat from Survivor San Juan del Sur, Jeremy was known for his rivalry with Josh Canfield and being blindsided by his own alliance. After going up against his wife, Val Collins, on day one's hero duel, the firefighting castaway ended up sending his better half to exile, which is a move that still crushes him to this day. Starting the timer. I remember liking Jeremy a lot, and it is almost kind of a shame that just the nature of the theme and the twists that season kind of just put him at a bit of a handicap right from the beginning.
Right. Yeah, because he was kind of on the outs because he knocked his own wife off.
Yeah, and he was the first person to not be there with their loved one.
Right.
And that made him the outlier right from the get-go. And then there was the whole thing that I think he was just so wrapped up in the emotion of that, understandably so, that it made him paranoid in some times when he didn't really need to be.
Yeah, that's what I remember about him.
Yeah, is that I think that there were a couple of times, if I recall right, that he had what could have been made into a real alliance, but ended up being pushed away because he was suspicious about the intentions. But we, having the armchair perspective, could see what was really going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just kind of scrolling back through this season to see if I see anything else I remember, but I think we got a lot of people from this season on this.
Yeah, well, we've got 18, 19, 20, 4 more people to go.
Yeah, I remember Jeremy. I like Jeremy. I remember the emotional thing when he had to send his wife off.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he just could never really click in with anybody after that.
Mm-hmm. So, and it left him on unequal footing with everybody else right from the get-go.
Right.
So let's see what happens when that's not the case. All right, next. Keithnale from season 29. There's no hiding that Keith didn't know much about the game before entering Survivor San Juan del Sur. After all, he himself admitted to entering the game so he could join his son Wesley for the fun ride. Never was his lack of strategy more evident than when Keith told everyone to stick to the plan at Tribal Council, inadvertently revealing right then and there that a plan was in place. Womp womp. Once again, that's in the text.
Yes.
Yes. Starting the timer. Stick to the plan. I just remember the reaction shot when he said that. A couple of people going, what?
There's a plan? Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, no. There's no plan. It's just like if there was, the plan was to do what everyone else. Wait, huh? Sorry.
It was funny.
Yeah, it was just one. And, I saw an interview with him where he was basically just saying, in retrospect, it was obviously a very dumb thing to say. He can't claim to have thought it out very well before he said it. But boy, it was just like, I think, it's a perfect example of when we have to keep in mind that, these people are exhausted and hungry. And, it's like sometimes something you might be just wanting to think to yourself might just go ahead and come out of your mouth. And then you say, oh, I didn't really mean to say that, but now it's on television. Which,
makes me interested to see how he plays his second time,
Yeah. Well, he's definitely a player that's, he's got a charisma to him, which makes him kind of fun and friendly. Like, you kind of like the guy, but he really never had much of a strategy to begin with. He was always really just kind of following whatever someone else was telling him to do. He really didn't ever make any moves of his own.
Yeah, so like I said, I'd be interested to see now that he's kind of had some time to reflect on it, and he has the charisma, and he's not a stupid guy.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting.
Yeah, I like him. I don't think he's necessarily a great player, but I enjoy watching him on TV, so I wouldn't mind having him stick around for a while.
Hold on real quick.
All right.
It's in the oven.
Oh, yeah, it's the frosting.
I'll put it in the oven. Sorry. No, it'll be fine. As long as you don't do it in here.
The real life intimacy of podcasting, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, we had Abby needs to vacuum, so she had to get the vacuum, and she asked if it would bother the podcast. I said, not unless you vacuum, like literally in this room.
There's also talk of defrosting something, but
that would be dinner. Anyway,
we can also move on to the next person, which is Kelly Wentworth, also from season 29. This Survivor San Juan del Sur castaway entered the game with her father, Dale Wentworth, and played peacemaker alongside his more outspoken nature. However, when the Wentworths tried to align with Jacqueline Schultz and John Misch to stay in the game, the couple chose to side with mother-daughter duo Missy Payne and Baylor Wilson instead, which ultimately sent Kelly out of the game. And so starting the timer, I vaguely remember her as another one of the players that was kind of shackled to their family member more so than being able to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like I don't have as many specific memories of her specifically other than just the dynamic with her dad and how that kind of, she ended up having to sort of apologize for him all the time.
Right, and I think she still got voted out before him because they knew they could get rid of him whenever because they didn't like him.
She was the one that was perceived as more of a threat to eliminate.
Right, and so when they broke that alliance up, they kind of got rid of her. So yeah, I remember that exact same thing. That's what I was going to say. Is I remember her as probably even more than Ciera. I remember her as because being shackled to her parent because I have more specific memories of the things that Dale was doing that were upsetting everybody than I do what Laura was doing.
Yeah, I think with Laura, it was just a matter of different loyalties. You know, she wanted to ally with different people than Ciera did. That's all that was, I think.
Whereas Dale was like rubbing people the wrong way.
Yeah.
And
he was actively
unapologetic about it. And then she had to apologize for him because he was unapologetic about it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I think that's what was going on there. So again, like with Ciera, like with some of the other players that we've talked about, it'll be nice to see how she's able to play when she's kind of able to just enter on her own 2 feet and not have to worry about anybody else's game alongside hers. Yep. All right, we're 5 seconds left, so I'm going to just go ahead and stop it. So only 2 more. Next up, Joe Anglin. Is that really his name? Apparently. From season 30. Joe, the attractive man bun wearing castaway from Survivor Worlds Apart, came in fired up and didn't know how to control him emotions. Nice text. Despite successfully navigating his way through various challenges. If you watched the show last year, then your memory of Not So Average Joe may have been the moment when he tried to make a fake hidden immunity idol to give to Mike Holloway. Needless to say, his plan backfired, and Joe's torch was snuffed on day 24. Starting the timer. Yeah, that fake immunity idol was pretty great. It was a shame that that wasn't able to kind of be more of a factor. You have any thoughts on that?
Sorry, you froze up on my screen.
Oh, okay.
You're back now.
Okay, so.
Do I have any thoughts on what?
Joe.
Oh, just Joe in general? Okay, I thought there was something because I just heard the end. Do you have any thoughts on that? On Joe, Joe had a man bun before it was like a thing.
This was only 6 months ago.
Was it?
Yeah, it was just this last season.
Yeah, that's true. But I only remember it being over the summer, like a thing. You know, he was on the forefront of the man bun. So it only became widely popular over the summer. No, I like Joe. I think Joe's awesome. I'm rooting for Joe also.
Yeah, he was pretty fun.
He seemed to really embody the whatever they were called, the free spirits.
Yeah.
No collars.
No collars. Yeah.
Yeah, he embodied that no collar thing with also being smart. Like he didn't have to separate completely like all of the values of the white collar and the blue collar. Like some of them were just kind of like, oh, we're not going to work hard and we're not going to pretend to be smart because that's the white collar and the blue collar thing.
Yeah, he's kind of practical.
He's a practical like free spirit. Yeah, he may not following the towing the line, but he is smart and practical, and that's what I really liked about him. Is that he blended all of the pieces together, and and he was charismatic too. I liked it. So,
yep, I did too. All right, and last but not least, Shireen Oskoy, season 30. On Survivor Worlds Apart, Shireen was the unrestricted, often naked, sometimes offensive castaway who made an impactful final tribal speech to the jury. While her fellow tribe members were often irked by her bluntness, there's no doubt this superfan's zeal, energy, and enthusiasm was obvious to everyone throughout the entire game. Starting the timer. So Shireen was one of the people that I was also kind of not sure I wanted to see come back, partly just because she became kind of so emotionally vulnerable on this season that felt in a way like maybe some of this should be private and not on national television.
Yeah. I get what they're saying though about, I mean, she did play with a zeal and energy, and she was like super into it. So, I mean,
yeah. Well, and in fact, I mean, some of the things that she that people were annoyed by were her sort of super fan tendencies.
Right. So I'm fine with it when it comes down to it. I'm curious to see how she treats this one.
I like her. I want to see her do well. I was really it was unlike with, say, Abby Maria, where I found her unpleasant. With Shireen, it was almost concern for her. Like I was worried that being on the show again wouldn't be good for her. But of course, I guess that's not my call to make, right? If she wants to be on the show, then that's her decision.
Her deal. Yeah.
Yeah. So but I think my hesitation was coming from that place. Not that I didn't want to see her anymore. But I do hope that she's able to have kind of a healthier relationship with some of her tribe mates this time.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah. I think that there was just some kind of toxic relationships going on there, especially with her, having to interact regularly with some people we really didn't like very much. Like, was it Dan or Dave? I don't remember now. Dan, I think.
Dan sounds right.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
All right.
Yeah. So that is all the second chance castaways. And that's so we're ready for this new season. In some ways, it's really not that different from just any kind of a returning castaways season. Whether it's heroes versus villains or whatever like that. It's like the format is pretty straightforward. I mean, the second chance aspect was really all in the preseason stuff of letting people vote, right? I mean, that's really the part. And so I don't think because it's all pre-recorded, they can't have people responding to stuff week to week or anything.
Right.
So I wonder though what they're going to do as far as let's see. Look, there's another article on here saying you won't believe the new twists happening on this season of Survivor. This is again on the main Survivor site. Twist number 1, changing up the appearance of the idols. It's not much of a twist that I won't believe, but whatever. Think you know how to spot an idol in the game? Well, think again. Survivor Cambodia, second chance, will be keeping its castaways on his and her toes. This is some poor copy here.
There's been a couple of those on this.
Yeah. Because his or her toes would be fine, except that they had been going from plural castaways. So it should be their toes. Whatever. By changing up the look of the idols each week. Oh, interesting. One may look very fancy, and then the next idol will look like a 5-year-old made it, host Jeff Probst told EW.com. That also opens the door to make a fake idol and convince someone it's fake. Allowing the castaways to play all angles of this new twist will undoubtedly shake up rooted alliances, game moves, and tight-knit relationships this season. That's interesting. The idea that they won't all look the same, so you can't count on what it'll look like to guess whether it's fake or not. That's kind of an interesting idea, except this description is not very good at telling us what that actually means.
Right.
In any case, twist number 2, hiding the idol in the middle of a challenge. Second twist is one Jeff has always wanted to implement into the game. Upon arriving to camp, castaways usually kick things off by hustling to find the first hidden immunity idol. In Survivor Cambodia Second Chance, however, clues will be hidden around their shelter and will read something similar to, "Good news, the idol's within reach. You just have to be daring enough to grab it." This way, there's no search involved for the lucky castaway. They'll know exactly where the idol is waiting for them. According to Probst, the only question will be, can you do it in front of your tribe in the middle of a challenge and get away with it? The real thrill for viewers is going to be whether the castaway can retrieve their idol mid-challenge with no one noticing, and whether they will sacrifice their own individual performance in the challenge to secure possession of the idol. That's kind of cool. I kind of like that. The idea that maybe like it'll be an obstacle course or something, and you can run way off course to go grab it off of a post or something.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
You know, and leaving the rest of your tribe behind. Although it also seems like a possible thing where like it's the sort of thing that like, what if you literally just have 4 people all run over at once and have to fight over it? I wonder how they would do that.
It sounds like there'd only be one clue. So,
well, but the point is that if they make it something that's obvious in the challenge, where the whole point is that you can't get it without everybody knowing exactly what you're doing. But what if you have a whole bunch of people try it at once?
Interesting. Yeah, we'll have to see how it all plays out, how that works. Yeah,
it's something to try. That's kind of an interesting idea. And so it's also taking place in Cambodia. So we'll see. I mean, I think they've had seasons there before. So I don't know. Are you excited about the season?
Always. No, I think it's good. I mean, I like that it's mostly people that we know and like. You know, it's an interesting way of doing like fans versus favorites, but I kind of dig it. You know, because there's no fans. It's all just.
Well, it's kind of like an all-star. It's like an all-stars, only no previous winners. Is the only difference.
Right.
Yeah. So, but otherwise, it plays out pretty much the same. And so, obviously, these seasons have a little bit of a benefit going in that we know everybody already.
Yep.
But we shall see. I think there's definitely some people to root for and some people to root against already.
Oh, yeah. So.
Yep. Okay. So, I think everyone remember the new season's going to start on September 23rd. In less than a week away. So I hope you enjoy. And remember, so whether you are watching this here on YouTube or my site, or whether you're listening to the podcast version, there are both versions. So watch whichever you like. And we generally do a Google Hangout Live, so you can watch live and ask us questions if you want at some point. And so we'll be back next week for the first episode. And Mike's doing something with his hand if you're only listening to the audio.
Making a smiley face.
All right.
Survivor's back, so that's it.
Survivor's ready.